You know that long-running joke about how the most popular person in Pittsburgh is always the backup quarterback? Well, it might now be OLB3. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Nick Herbig is that dude. Fun little story for you. The other day in Detroit, I was chatting with Cam Hayward at one side of the locker room, and Mike Tomlin walks over, interrupts us to point over toward Herbig's stall where he was being surrounded by cameras and microphones. And Tomlin said, "You believe that? It's August. It's August. They're making Herbig out to be some big star." He said it all in good fun, but that's also part of what Tomlin does with younger players. He wants them feeling a little bit on edge. He wants them feeling as if they haven't made it yet. And in Herbig's case, it's funny. He really hasn't made it yet. But all he does every single time he's on the field is either generate splash or come really close to generating splash. The most appropriate term to describe Herbig is this: exciting. And to an extent, as with most exciting athletes, you can't take your eyes off him when he's out there because you're going to miss something. If you think he's been sealed up, if you think he's not going to be able to shed his block, he's going to make you wrong within the matter of about a second and a half. And then, once he's in the backfield, and he closes like a viper. And I'm actually convinced that's his strongest suit out of many. It's that when he gets back there, he's way, way, way better than to simply settle for a QH. On the score sheet, he wants the S. And then on top of that, he'll get there and he'll knock the ball out, or he'll intercept it, or recover the fumble he just forced. He's just nothing but splash. Now, I say that, I'll bet you're saying it, and yet what Tomlin is saying, joking or not, is not yet, kid. Not yet, because we've got TJ Watt on one side, Alex Highsmith on the other. And even if there's going to be some kind of 3 outside linebacker schemes, and we've seen them at times in the preseason, and we've seen a bunch of them in Latrobe, that's still not going to amount to an awful lot of football for someone who seems to be really, really good at it. And what that's going to lead to, at least I'm expecting this, is more of a fuss publicly over who's the starting right outside linebacker than who's the starting quarterback. I could be wrong, obviously, but I know that Highsmith, coming off the unusual 2023 season that he had, and I say that mostly because he had the 14 sacks in 2022, he got paid, his sack total was basically cut in half, and he wasn't nearly as visible as he'd been before that. This one's going to have to be different. This one's going to have to be a lot closer to 2022 than 2023 for Highsmith, even if he continues to do all those little things that rightly and fairly impress his coaches and teammates the way they do. Highsmith is a stout run stopper. He does seal the edge on that side. He does afford TJ the luxury of being able to have one-on-one matchups on his side because you can't overload on the protection over there. And he is, of course, capable of splash of his own. This is a very good football player. I'm not bringing him up to bash him or even to come close to that. But I am comfortable saying that he'll need to do more of that to keep from quickly becoming one of the most unpopular people in town. Or, way more significantly, getting replaced. Here again, not making a prediction, but there are few things that football coaches at any level value more than the creation of takeaways. And heaven knows Tomlin's no exception to this. If Tomlin sees takeaways coming from 51 repeatedly, as they've already come and have continued to come through this preseason, I mean, what's he going to do? You know? Is he going to say, well, we can't play him because he's not as good as Highsmith is against the run? No, can't. Can't do that. Can't do that. I happen to believe that this situation is the type that'll settle itself without any controversy. Somebody gets hurt. Unfortunately, it's that type of position. Or somehow Tomlin and Terrell Austin figure out a way to rotate Herbig through both sides. And it's notable, I think, that in Detroit, Herbig did play both sides, as well as one time stunting to the middle, something we've seen from TJ this summer. And if that kid can become proficient at doing his thing from different points on the defense, and if the coaching staff feels as confident in having him come from either the left or the right, they can use him to spell both TJ and Alex, unlike, say, for example, the arrangement that was in play last season whenever Herbig and Marcus Golden were kind of going into their slot, their respective slot, when it came time to spell TJ or Alex. You can have Herbig do both of them, unless, of course, you can name whoever number 4 might be on that depth chart. I can, but can you? Good luck. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Chad, who asks, DK, did you watch Broderick Jones in Detroit? His guy made the tackle on every play that he was blocking for. Chad, I did watch Jones. I watched him from the press box in the stadium live. I also watched him and everyone else in a second viewing of the film after getting back to Pittsburgh. And although I gave Brod what I feel was fair credit from Detroit in that bonus episode I did over the weekend, in particular for his and everybody else's role on that opening drive, you know, that second viewing wasn't so kind. It was still, to a large extent, a struggle for the kid. He was getting pushed back. He was losing battles up high, meaning upper body, meaning, you know, the elbow that everybody's worrying about, and rightly so. And it wasn't upon second viewing the big 180 or the bounce back that I had described after watching him there in person. That's just the nature of how football goes and studying football. You can't see everything at once. And that, I'm sure, is even more true when it applies to something as nuanced as the offensive line. I didn't like Brod's game overall. I would be lying to you if I told you I thought I'd feel really good about him going into Atlanta, but I also know that there's 2 weeks between the game in Detroit and the one in Atlanta. And maybe, as I've been hearing, that elbow's not really going to get a whole lot better in short order. Maybe 2 weeks will buy you some healing time to some degree. Maybe he's just going to continue figuring out how to block with that brace on. But if I'm the Steelers and I continue to see this, at least however much you can see it in practice settings, and they are going to have some ramped up practices next week, and possibly even in the 2 sessions today and tomorrow before the 4-day break, then I would at least have it in the back of my mind during that break that Troy Fautanu still exists, and he plays that position. And he, even though he's obviously been held back by the knee injury, and surprisingly to me, wasn't used in Detroit, although there had been indications beforehand that that might be the case. Let's see how it goes with both of them, meaning between Jones and Fautanu in practice. Let's see who looks, not even necessarily on performance. Let's see who looks healthier. Let's see who looks more able to handle the rigors of an NFL game in less than 2 weeks. Whichever the choice ends up being, in advance of that, it behooves everybody, I'd say, to be open-minded. Don't be stubborn and send Brod out there to make some kind of point. Don't be worried about sending the kid out there to do something he's done all his life, meaning the other kid, Fautanu. Now, I'm glad you asked the question. I am. I don't ever want anyone to think when they hear me declare something on here, especially when it's right after the game, that it's some definitive thing. I still need, just like everybody else needs, to look at the game again, to see the details, to rewind when needed, and Brod's performance deserved a rewind. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.